right, my good friend Nick Batch, Nicholas Batch joins us. He's in Eloy Skydive, Arizona. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you doing, Regan?
That's good. So good to see you, Nick. It really, truly is. We keep in touch every now and again with a few messages, but it's good to see you, even though it's only online. What a week it's been. Overall champion at the US Nationals. What a comeback. Hollywood must be knocking at the door. What a story to tell.
Yeah. It's been quite the experience, kind of surreal, euphoria, as you would say, for the last week or so. But the last month in general, month plus, has been just unbelievable. So it's awesome. Thank you.
So, shall we have a walk back in time and talk through it a little bit?
Sure. Let's start where you want.
Well, let's go back 2 years before the accident. You know, I remember Swoop Freestyle. We had the events, and you were on top of the world, you're on top of your A game. Tell me what was going on before the accident. Tell me what was happening in your life, Nick.
That was a 2016, 17, 18. I was, like you said, I was at the top of the game, was doing my thing, lots of jumps, lots of sponsors, was very fortunate at the time. We had a lot going on. I think that was even starting back in the Dubai days before all the sponsorships out there. And, so we were traveling around the world doing, I can't remember how many DIPCs, 6 of them so far before that. And I had a good run at it. I was winning. I had won 4 championships in a row there, between the Dubai meet, the World Games, the World Championships, and the World Cup. So everything was really lining up there for to keep rallying, keep going real strong. And that was going really well. And last time I think you saw me compete was the World Championships in Poland.
It was
in 2018.
Yes.
And that was actually, and then right after that we did the swoop freestyle. So that was the last meet that I had actually done. I was with you in Copenhagen.
Yes.
And we just finished that. I was going back to home. I went back to Colorado to train with my teammate, Jay, and we were going to do 2-ways for the PD 2-way competition. We were going to train some 2-ways and get that going. And we kind of jumped the gun there, and it was first jump back. I had just flown in international. He had just flown in from California. Combination of things, he hadn't jumped there in 6 or 7 years. I hadn't followed him in years. There was a lot of things that had played a role in the accident that occurred that day. We were in such a hurry to get on the load and not even paying enough attention. I didn't even have any GoPro cards in my camera from when I dropped them off to the Swoop Freestyle team over in Copenhagen. Yeah. I had totally forgotten to reload the cameras even, Yeah. Got to training, and we did our first jump, and I was following too tightly. We were doing a 630. And when I got to the bottom end of the turn, I must have been at least maybe only 10 meters off from him at that point. And I hadn't looked at the ground. I had been watching him. So when that had occurred, at those speeds, the calculations, Regan, are 100 miles per hour is 150 feet a second closing. And we're usually finishing our turns, as you've seen, at 300 to 350 feet on the safe side. Yeah. When we're low, 250, 300 feet from the ground. And just, maybe a hesitation on my behalf, a fast snap, a little bit low on his behalf. And that combined with each other put me about 40, 50% lower than I need to be for the recovery arc in Colorado, nonetheless. So that's like 5,500 feet above sea level. And I was loading a 64 at 3.2 with my 35 pounds of weight on. So we were gunned up, we were going big. And that's sort of where it all came down to. And so when I had the accident, I hit the toggles, and and the weird thing in the sport, and you've seen it a bunch of times, is you're almost better off hitting the water harder than you are softer.
Right.
And when I get deflected, it was just my knees catching. So I was at the bottom of that pendulum, right at the bottom of the recovery arc, almost got out of the dive, and then just caught my knees at probably a good 90 plus miles an hour horizontal. And that flipped me upside down in the harness a bit. And I was The next sight picture I had was the ground behind me. I'm looking at earth behind me, and I'm probably like gauging 30, 40 feet in the air at this point, from the deflection and the unloading of the wing. So after that went up, I righted myself in the harness with my toggles. I didn't know how much toggles I used to do it, but I did it. Yeah. And then I realized I'm like 60 feet in the air, soaring off angle about 45 degrees from the pond towards the windsock and the bulldozer and what else was out there at the time. And she started to come back down, kind of like a high-speed stall, went up real fast and then peaked out, not much lift left, and started sinking real fast. So I just flew the stall all the way into a stand-up, and I stood up on the side of the pond at an angle, and that's what ended up, my left leg went out at that point. I had a tib-fib compound fracture, and then a femur break at the top of the hip, right by the femur head. And so when the lower leg twisted, the upper hip couldn't hold the weight that twisted, and I ended up on my face, broke my nose, and was in pieces. Yeah. So that's how kind of the whole accident went down. Yeah. It was pretty traumatic at the time, but it took a while to recover for sure. Yeah.
What's incredible about that, Nick, is most people in an accident situation say, I don't remember a thing. I don't remember anything about it. And that description, you remember every single detail.
Yeah, I didn't go unconscious during the whole thing. Like the moments after impact with the high adrenaline and the wounds and stuff, that's faded memory a bit. It's hard to remember exactly when down. I know I was talking to them and explaining them what I did as a sport. It was really interesting with how much adrenaline you have as a human during times like that, how much pain kind of goes away for the first, 5-10 minutes. Yeah. It just depends on the agony, what you're under. I didn't have any upper torso injury. I was able to save my spine, my back, my legs, my neck, sacrificing my legs by standing up. Yeah. And shooting all that accuracy that we've done for so many years, where you've seen myself and fellow competitors sort of stall it in from 15 feet into the box. That's kind of what I would say saved me a bit, because I flew this 64, which is the same wing as I use in accuracy. Yeah. And I was in a stalled moment coming down from much higher than you would ever want to be, and that's kind of what gave me a chance, was being in control of the landing. Yeah. If I wasn't in control of landing, I'm not sure where I would have gone or how it would have ended, for sure.
Incredible stuff. I mean, just after that, we had Freestyle in San Diego, and your name was still on the sheet there, and all the graphics. It was very close to the next event.
I was watching you guys from the hospital that event. Yeah. So, but that was really hard times for sure. And no one's to be blamed for any of that. That's a 7 different things come into play at the same time. And it doesn't matter if you're on top of your game or not. It can come to get you at any time if you're not being completely on that moment, focused 100%. In these rare incidences, we're just moving so fast. So, yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your time afterwards, your recovery, what was going on in your mind at home?
Yeah. The recovery was difficult. We had a lot of family things going on. And then we had a few deaths, a friend that got hurt really badly, in a similar incident, swooping, so there was a lot of family things at that moment, with the leg being hurt so badly, sort of relearning to push yourself mentally and physically. I think that was the hardest thing mentally. Physically it was weird. That was like not walking for 3 months. My family on both sides really came through for me. But mentally, I think the biggest part for me was that I kind of got taken away from the career that I was on, and I didn't get to go out the way I wanted to go out as a competitor. So it was kind of like the last 3 years, I had plans to retire at 40. Here I am back at 40 out of retirement for a year. So we'll see where that goes. Yeah. And it wasn't really the goal. The goal was to kick some butt until I get, another 3 years in me and then retire. So we're doing things a little backwards here, but but yeah, the road recovery was tough, and involved a lot of physical pushing, like mentally learning to be happy with just the day-to-day life, the monotonous tasks, things that you don't normally get to spend as much time doing. But it taught me a whole lot too, like I was able to focus primarily on my students, teaching with canopy pouting and basic canopy control skills. It really opened up a door to, my passion towards teaching even more than I was before, because I'm living vicariously through my students when I wasn't jumping. More than when I'm competing for myself. And I'm also teaching, but it's not the same focus. You're taken away from one job to do another job. If you're a professional athlete doing this, and then on the other end, outside the professional athlete, you teach it as well. So they kind of go hand in hand, but it's been amazing though. I learned a lot from my students, changing techniques that I'd like to try myself now. Just from being able to work with them and the GPSs and the 4K video. And it's really, technology's come a long way to help us with that. So, but we've done a lot of that, and continued on to, the hardest part for me was not being able to jump for a long time. And when I was able to jump again, financially, my wife, she went back to school, which is wonderful. She is now a CRNA. Which is great. So we're really happy. In the last few years have been great, pushing her through her programs, and I'm very proud of what she's accomplished. In my time off, it's been really great to be able to focus on her. So it's it's weird how things happen. Sometimes maybe for a reason, who knows?
Did you always know, Nick, that you were going to get back in the air? First two questions really. Did you always know you were going to get back in the air, and when did you decide you were going to compete again?
Well, that was the hard part. Like, I knew I might jump again, but competition wise, I've had to give myself a really long mental talk or breakdown to where I know that like, hey, it's okay if you don't compete again. That's, you've already accomplished all the things you need to accomplish in the sport. And if that's not something that's down your avenue, because maybe physically your body won't hold up, you're not sure yet, or maybe mentally you just don't want to do it again. I never put that pressure on myself to come back into the sport to compete. I just kind of let life be the way it was until that sort of became an option for me. And so question number two, the thing that brought me back in the sport was that strangely enough, with all these COVID related cancellations of world championship events and venues, the world freestyle event didn't happen in Siberia as it should have. So they went off of the previous standings from 2018's world championships for the roster on some of the overalls of the world games. And that's in Birmingham, Alabama in July. So I was invited not on a wild card slot waiting for a chance, but on a position player slot to attend the world games in Alabama. So that's what brought me back to the sport. And that news was announced to me by Exie and Cornelia in a phone call from Siberia on FaceTime in the middle of the day. Totally random, great phone call to be received, instead of just an email. And that was one of those, it was really hard because that was one of those, I had only done 3 skydives at the moment since my break. For over 3 years and 2 months, I hadn't really jumped, but only 3 times in 2 months. And so to accept the slot was very pretentious. It was very overzealous. I was very trying to overachieve myself a bit in my ability level at the time, because I had no idea whether I'd be able to actually do what I want to do. I've only done a few landings. Wasn't sure if the leg could hold up to it. So that's what brought me back into the sport. And then nationals was the tryout for, if I'm going to do this in Alabama at a world team level, then I want to do it for real for this year and go for all 3 world teams instead of just the Alabama one, which was off previous achievements, not off new achievements. So
when did the training start for Eloy for the national? How did that begin?
The training actually, funny enough, I started jumping on September 18th in Eloy. I live here in Phoenix with my wife now. And so we moved back here in August, and I've was out at work, still doing coaching and construction to pay some bills and get things done. And as soon as I finished the last coaching and construction gig, I took the time off, 5-6 weeks off, to focus primarily on training and then doing the competition. Unfortunately, my home's over 90 miles from the facility, the drop zone in Eloy. So it was a lot of driving, but nice to be home because it's early days here. But I did about 120 training jumps in about 28 days. And then that was extremely physically demanding. My body was in high demand of labor and a lot of protein, trying to keep myself running all day. I have a membership to a place called Restore for cryotherapy, infrared heat, PBM, red light, compression, decompression chambers, doing everything I can as an athlete to take care of myself, to get back into shape that you need to be in order to win or do well at one of these venues. It is a big difference between sitting around for 3 years and then starting to be that physical again. It really whipped me back into shape, but also it hurt real bad for a long time. I had some numbness pain and some arm issues, and there was just over torturing muscle groups for what I probably jumped about 24 out of 29 days that month, from not jumping at all. Yeah. So that's sort of where the training came from and went.
Did you ever doubt that you were doing the right thing, Nick, coming back like this?
Yeah, there was a lot of pain. There's a lot of physical pain, but also financially, like it's really demanding. And as a Hop and Pops, respectfully, they put a lot of money, and it's an amazing facility out there at Skydive, Arizona, but it gets expensive when you're jumping 130, 140 times in a month. No matter where you're going, you're spending a lot of cash. So the hard part was getting used to, putting that type of financial burden on the family, to put myself in a position to like, is this something I can do or want to do again? And I've always had high expectations and goals for myself as an athlete. Coming back in and like wanting to make the US team for Dubai and things like that with the overall placings, there's a lot of pressure that I was putting on myself to be good enough after. And to be honest, Regan, it was a lot of beginner type of issues, just a hard time focusing on all the things I used to focus on in the plane and getting ready and the preparation and just the whole mantra of how you used to treat yourself as an athlete. Getting back into that was a rough go. I kept on getting, wow, this parachute's small, like the harness is loose, like all these old issues that you would go through as like a younger jumper when you're jumping these gears for the first time. Yeah. So that's sort of was one of the challenges, was overcoming the stall surges and the pressure of performing at the level that I was once at was to me almost an unattainable goal in such a short amount of time. Yeah, it was pushing hard, but I got lucky. I was able to push really hard. I didn't have any major injuries, and that helped me push through without the cryotherapy, without the infrared saunas, without the icing my legs and the ankles constantly and my arms. I don't know if I would have been able to achieve those results without that many jumps. Yeah, for sure.
And what a result. What an incredible result, taking the overall championship. It is absolutely a phenomenal achievement, Nick.
Yeah. Well, I do appreciate that. It's been, like I said, it's been a euphoric experience to where, there's amazing pilots, Regan, with the talent level this year at nationals was above what I expected when I thought I'd take on this task. with all the people really flying well with the mutant harnesses and the FLCPA results from the meet before, I wasn't positive that that was an attainable goal, by nationals. But I was able to dig deep and find moments in my competition where I felt like myself again, which is a strange thing to say, but there's times when you're flying where you're like, dang, that was it. That's that feeling that you get. And the emotional roller coaster was just insane because there were so many good pilots in first place ahead of me the whole competition until the very end. And Kurt was creeping up big time in distance on some runs, and I didn't have some so hot runs with my 58. Adjusting to different wing loadings. I'm really light right now. I'm about 6 or 7 kilos light from where I was when I quit the sport. Yeah. And that really changes a lot with the canopies that I was choosing for competition back then to where I'm at now. So I'm trying to bulk back up, trying to get strong again. I think that's important to try to compete against these guys like Cedric, who's been knocking out of the park for the last few years. I haven't been around. Yeah. There's a few world-class competitors here, but not nearly what you run into at a world meet for sure. We're missing quite a few international competitors that I would rank in the top 10 in the world weren't here, to push against as well. So I'm very excited for the future and what it holds for us.
How was it to be in that situation again, to see all these contemporaries of your sport, Cornelia, Kurt, all these people that were there? It must have been a really quite an intense time, all the hellos and catching up, and it must have been quite emotional.
There was, I found myself in that time where you're just, oh man, I miss hanging out. I miss all the friends. I miss all the people. And the competitors that are there, there's new faces on the podiums that I wouldn't have ever expected to be there. That are coming along, a lot of improvements in the last few years as competitors. So I've got them. I'm breathing down your neck, and honestly, I was just trying to figure out if I can make this happen. I had just gotten my 58 about 3 jumps before the FLCPA from New Zealand, and I only had a 64 left because I had been borrowing parachutes from everyone since I had been broken. I used a lot of them for payments for other things like bills and such, and they were all from 2015 and earlier. So I went ahead and sold them while I could, and then I found myself here wanting to get back in the sport in the middle of a pandemic, and it's hard to get equipment. It's a different game than it used to be. Things are taking longer. There's shutdowns everywhere, So yeah, I found it very interesting to compete against those skill sets of all these people, and they have a lot of them have shiny new equipment, and it looks pretty. I like some of it, like the mutant harnesses, the Infinity harness from Infinity, where they can get in the supine position and stuff like that. It looks like for some athletes, it's working really well for their speed times. And some of them are going decent distances when they do get it right. So it's pretty neat to watch for sure.
Incredible. So what's next for Nick Batch?
Well, I don't know where you're going to be coming up here soon, but I did make the team for Dubai for the DIPC here in December. So I'll be attending the DIPC, and then I think there's a bit of a break until the summer starts up with the World Games and some of the hopefully maybe some freestyle venues when that's being announced and such. So I'm looking forward to seeing if something is coming onto the roster this year since I'm coming back in the sport. It's a real exciting time because there could be possibilities with where things are going. But at the time, it's just, those are my main focus and goals. And then the World Championships in Eloy in October. And we'll go for there.
What a story, Nick. What a catch up. Good to see you. Really, really fantastic. And thanks for giving me your time. I really appreciate it.
No, it's been great. Thanks for your time, Regan. And I look forward to talking to you soon in person somewhere around the world.
We absolutely will. Big Batch, US National overall champion, as Pablo Hernandez said on Facebook this week, the greatest of all time. You take care, buddy.
Thank you very much, Regan. I appreciate your time. Thank you, guys. All right. Bye-bye.